Hi, Growth Track team. Wow, we got through week 1. We did it. So congratulations. And what an exciting weekend it was. I have to tell you, it was pure delight for me to see week 1 just have life breathed into it by each of you and to see us take this step as a church. So we have prayed so much about this time frame, and it was really, really special to take part and see it begin. So thank you for being on the journey with us and stepping into it at a time where we're trying to figure a lot of pieces out. So I'm so appreciative of each of you, and I know the campus teams are too, and we've had so much fun just talking about it over the last couple of days of what everybody's experience was like, and as we start to look forward to week 2. I have a few things for you that are just more of a 30,000 foot view, and then we'll step into the program plan specifically for week 2. So a couple thoughts for you as I was thinking about facilitating that in the group, particularly that you are serving in September. Since these are some of our most connected people, I noticed that you are getting questions that aren't necessarily typical questions that you are going to get as part of the weekend experience of Growth Track. And you navigated them really well. And I just want you to know that if there's anything that comes up that you're not sure about, don't hesitate to ask. And it's okay to say, you know what, I'm not sure about that. Let me ask and I'll follow up with you, or I'll have an answer for you next week. For the most part, these participants are going to go through week 1, 2, 3, 4. There will be a little bit of skipping around, but the campus teams can also follow up with people who have specific questions. So just sort of, that was my reminder of why this 30,000 foot view is so interesting in September, is because of the questions that you're getting. But a couple thoughts for you is, as you are facilitating both content and helping people take next steps, because you really are still doing this in September too. We had a few people who we know haven't taken some next steps in the areas that we identified in week 1. So that was kind of fun to see. But at the same time, language is so key as part of facilitating both content and next steps, because this is all new to us. This has been a big learning curve for me, is really sticking to a bit of the more narrow path when it comes to my descriptions of Growth Track and the Growth Track weekend experience, so that as we roll out something new, it's as clear and consistent as we can get it. And this isn't going to be, this is a work in progress, as we all know. But what I would share with you is I've really started referring to the Growth Track weekend experience in that way, so that there is not the perception that we go through 4 weeks and we're somehow all grown up and mature. The reality is that the components of Growth Track are introduced at the weekend experience, and we help you take a first couple steps towards discovering your purpose. But getting deeper and growing closer to Christ, as we know, is a lifelong journey. Typically, it happens in some way through those 4 steps. In fact, we see that in all places throughout Scripture and throughout our own stories, that this know God, find freedom, discover your purpose, and make a difference, those components are what make up the spiritual journey. Now, the Growth Track weekend experience introduces you to those principles, and again, a first couple steps into discovering your purpose. The language is so key because it sets expectations, it offers clarity, and in many ways, sometimes promises. So I want us to be very careful as a team to not overpromise to what Growth Track and the weekend experience of Growth Track will do in someone's life. But we also know that clarity of what the spiritual journey is actually its greatest gift. And so if you're to sort of sit anywhere in those spaces, I would encourage you to sit in those, of that we want to offer clarity, that these are the 4 components of growing in your relationship with Christ. And so as part of that, we have this weekend experience to help introduce you to that and take a first couple steps towards discovering your purpose. So I hope that helps from the 30,000 foot view. And the scripts are really designed to help you through that. And I love that you are breathing life into it and bringing your own personality. My encouragement to you would be to use sort of those as handholds or footholds, if you will, as you do that, so that we are all speaking the same language about what this is. Oh, it's so new and exciting and fresh and confusing and all of the above. And so we have just an enormous opportunity to be able to step into that space as best we can. So with that, let's look at the program plan for week 2. For week 2 is Find Freedom. I had moved to Discover Your Purpose here on my computer, so you'll notice that it's set up very similar to how week 1 is, and in fact they all are. They'll have a setup portion, it'll talk about the experience when guests arrive, and then we move right into the welcome. I hope that you see the language that I just talked about reflected in that welcome, and then an opportunity for you to introduce yourself again and pray. This week has a little bit more opportunity for connection. In fact, you'll notice we're going to use the conversation cards, those images that help people open up faster than anything. So there is a question around those images, and the campus teams will have a pack for each table. In fact, we're going to have one for every person, and so I'll get to that. And then you'll do a video transition into Ben's teaching, and then we'll talk about next steps. It's important to remember that even though Ben has talked about next steps, again, you're facilitating now, helping people to take those. So you're really equipping them very much at ground level of what does it look like to join a group. And this is going to be a little bit different this week because we haven't launched our groups yet. But you can still try this and use this group as true guinea pigs to walk all the way through that script. And then you can fall out of that role and say, okay, I know you probably have lots of questions, but that's how week 2 is going to feel. I noticed that you were getting lots of questions that were not necessarily content related, but more about just growth tracking groups overall. And don't feel like you have to have the answers. If there is anything you're not able to answer or talk about, just elevate that to the campus team and they can follow up, or we can provide that sort of clarity next week. So in fact, one of the campuses where I was, she said, well, what if they start asking really hard questions? Or what if somebody has a major life issue? How is the host going to handle that? And I thought, I thought it was kind of cool. She was really recognizing the I think the incredible role that this team plays. And so if you're wondering the same thing, don't hesitate to ask. And as you walk through these next steps, be just very practical about them. You're helping them actually take them in the moment. And that's what the back of that card is for, is really saying, okay, now that you've heard about these things and you be you in this space, what next step do you need to take? I think one of the questions that came up too is because this is a guinea pig group, did they want us to sort of pretend? And we really don't. It's really just be you and check the boxes that apply, and it will help still shore up our systems on the back end of what kind of follow-up do we need to do, what kind of reporting are we doing, and some of the very behind the scenes things that will be happening as Growth Track continues to move out. The Growth Track weekend experience. See, you're going to have to catch me on it. So, and then we close out in prayer. The one thing I would tell you is I hope that you've noticed that sharing your personal story is really important in here. So I've given you some space to do that. And that is really, I think, just the magic of you in that host role is really sharing how this journey has been personal for you and what it has looked like to help you grow closer to Christ. So let me see, checking my notes. I think that's all I had for this week. Again, this is an open feedback loop. Let us know what questions you have, how we can best equip you. And thank you so much for stepping into this with us. So hopefully I'll have a chance to see you this weekend, or at least we'll see each other a bit next week for Discover Your Purpose.